if you glance down, you need to see that second cartridge has been chambered, because the loudest sound in the African bush is the click when you're expecting a bang. And the second loudest sound in the African bush is a bang when you're expecting a click.
Welcome to the Big Game Hunting Podcast, where we help hunters like you prepare for the big game hunting adventures you've always dreamed of. Now, here's your host, John McAdams.
Hello, everybody. John McAdams here, and welcome to episode 125 of the Big Game Hunting Podcast. As promised, Kevin Robertson is back on the show again today. Last week, Kevin and I talked about Cape buffalo in very general terms, but today we're going to have an in-depth discussion on how to prepare for a Cape buffalo hunt in Africa. Far too many hunters show up in Africa woefully unprepared for their safari and pay the price. However, in this episode, Kevin provides some excellent advice to prospective buffalo hunters, so make sure you pay attention to what he has to say on how to prepare physically, how to practice shooting under realistic conditions before you go to Africa, what you should bring with you on the hunt, and much more. So, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, well, Kevin, it is great having you back on the show again today. And so today, since we're talking about preparing for a Cape buffalo hunt, can you share a story with us that kind of illustrates what can go wrong when a hunter shows up really unprepared for their hunt?
I sure can. This story comes back from when I was still a learner professional hunter. You have to do a 2-year apprenticeship to become a fully qualified professional hunter. And we were hunting in the Teresa Safari area around an area called Tsopani Pan. And Tsopani Pan is a spring, and it's only water in this very large dry area. And I was with 2 professional hunters, and there were 2 of us learners, myself and a guy called Rowan Lewis, who eventually went on to become a well-known professional hunter in Zimbabwe. Anyway, our clients were 2 guys from California, and they flew in, and we picked them up and took them to camp. And the one guy, he was using a 416 Weatherby Magnum. It was my first experience of a Weatherby Magnum, and had a muzzle brake on it, and his first shot blew my hat off, and my ears have never stopped ringing since. I've never experienced anything like that. Anyway, the next morning, the first morning of the hunt, he arrived in the sort of dining area for early morning breakfast, and he was wearing a pair of camouflage boots. I mean, the first time I've ever seen, must have been Gore-Tex, some camouflage boots, and we all teased him about it. He was quite a nice sort of jovial sort of guy. And he said, these are actually a present from my son. He gave them to me at the airport just as I was about to board the plane. So
no.
So off they went, and we split up. I didn't hunt with him. I went with his other companion, and we went off. And so the buffalo would come and drink at Tsopani Pan and overnight. And the hunting method was you just look for tracks around the pan, and then you just track them from there. So we tracked all day, and walked a long way. We got back to camp, and everybody had glum faces all around. And then this guy appeared, and his feet were swathed in mercurochrome, and he was hobbling like he had orchitis. And it turned out that they were busy tracking buffalo, walked a long way, and sort of well into the hunt, they noticed that this guy was starting to limp. And they said to him, "What's the problem?" He said, "No, man, these new boots of mine are giving me a bit of a hard time." So they said, "You always carry a medical kit on the hunt." So they said, "Well, just take your boots off. We'll put a plaster on where you think you're getting a blister." Now, he takes his boots off, and he's wearing those boots without socks. So he's wearing brand new boots without socks. And nobody had a spare pair of socks, which we subsequently learned on a hunt. You always carry a dry pair of socks. So this guy had to walk, so they abandoned the hunt and just walked back to the pan. And by the time he got back to the pan, he had blisters on his blisters. He was just, the blisters had popped. They were all just raw. And that was the end of his hunt. So the first day of his hunt, he just wore his feet out. And from then on, he hunted in flip-flops. That area is what they call Kalahari sand. It's almost like walking in beach sand. And if you ever try to walk on a beach in a pair of flip-flops, you know how unpleasant that is. And we eventually managed to get him a buffer. And I've actually written up this story. It's called The Weatherby Man in my book, It Shouldn't Happen. But that was just a classic example of how someone can be so dumb to go on a hunt with a brand new pair of boots and wear them without socks. He came from California, which I suppose probably explains quite a lot. But it was a real eye-opener. And after that, I suddenly realized, even as a learner, that you have to treat your safari clients as absolute novices, absolute babies. I mean, you would have thought an experienced hunter would know better than to arrive and wear brand new boots without even socks on the first morning of a hunt where you expected to walk at least 10 miles in a day.
You know, I'll bet that's the sort of profession that you really see all kinds, from guys that really are incredibly experienced hunters to guys like this that, you know, like you said, aren't even wearing socks with their boots. And I'm sure probably more than half of your struggles is not necessarily dealing with the buffalo or whatever it is that you're hunting, but it's trying to save your client from themselves sometimes, huh?
Oh, very much so. You can't be realize how sort of unprepared these guys spend a lot of money to come on a hunt, and then they make no effort to prepare themselves for the occasion. You know, I think I've said it in one of the podcasts before. If you want to go and learn to play golf, you don't go to St Andrews in Scotland to learn how to play golf. You know, you do your basic. You get prepared first before you go on an adventure. And it just surprised me at many times how unprepared people were, how little thought they gave to what was happening. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote my books in Yachty and Africa's Most Dangerous, is probably just to help prepare the people for. Because the better prepared you are, the more and the easier the hunt you have, the more you enjoy it. You know, I mean, that guy's hunt was ruined. He hobbled around the camp on his bloody feet that were all smothered in mercurochrome, and he was just had an awful hunt because he just couldn't walk.
No, you're right. You know, I don't want to be paying $1,000 a day to go on a big hunt somewhere and not be enjoying it, not, you know, get sick or get hurt or something like that from something that was totally preventable. So that's what we're trying to fix today.
Yeah, so as you'll talk about some of your other questions, it's very important that we'll cover those other topics as well.
You know, so I guess to start off with, I know the answer to this question can vary widely depending on where you're hunting, but in the grand scheme of things, where do you think buffalo rank compared to other species of plains game and other species of game, dangerous game, plains game, in terms of the physical difficulty of a hunt?
Well, I think the most challenging hunt, if it's done correctly, is obviously an elephant hunt. You know, they say you hunt an elephant with your legs, and that's very true. Now, elephant's just a walking machine. So, 21-day elephant hunt, you just walk your backside off in 21 days, and that's how it should be, because that's where the challenge of the hunt is. You know, elephants are easy to kill. The challenge with an elephant hunt is actually finding the right track, tracking it down, finding the right elephant. That's where the challenge comes in. The second most challenging hunt, I believe, is probably for a Lord Derby Zealand, where those Lord Derby Zealand just walk. They never stop walking, and that can be a real challenging hunt. But thirdly, I would certainly rank buffalo. And when I was hunting full-time and hunting a lot, I would say to my clients, be prepared to walk 100 miles for your buffalo. You're going to walk 10 miles a day, and it's a 10-day buffalo hunt. We'll hopefully shoot your buffalo on the last day or the second last day. So be prepared, mentally prepared to walk 100 miles. And that's the challenge of the hunt, is not just walking, it's seeing all the other interesting areas where you pass through all the beautiful scenery, bumping into lions, bumping into elephants and stuff, and seeing remote springs and all those places that you would never get to if you were just even a photographic tourist. Because the nice thing about a buffalo hunt is that there's always a buffalo at the end of the tracks. So eventually, and with the fantastic trackers we have in Africa, you'll eventually find that buffalo. But it's got to be it's a track, walk, and stalk hunt. And there are certain areas in Africa where you at least walk at least 10 miles a day until you find the right buffalo. I mean, you'll see buffalo every day. You will observe them. You'll look them over and turn them down until you find that right buffalo, that one that's special. It's the old guy that you've been dreaming about all your life. So, yeah, 100 miles for your buffalo. That's what I used to tell my clients.
So definitely more of a marathon rather than a sprint, though, in terms of what someone needs to be prepared for.
Yeah, it's just endurance, and you've got to be walking fit. So I see one of your questions about how do you prepare for that, and maybe I should jump into that. You prepare for that by walking in your hunting boots, the boots that you're going to walk, and carrying a weight that's the same weight as your rifle. So a lot of people don't make the time when they prepare to get fit. You don't have to run. You don't have to be running fit. You just need endurance. You need to be walking fit, and your shoulders got to be conditioned to have a 10 or 11 or 12 pound rifle on your shoulder for that length of time all day. So I recommend it. How do you prepare yourself for your buffalo hunt? Well, you start a walking program. You start slowly, and eventually you increase your walking distances till you can walk 10 miles easily. And while you're walking, you either carry a piece of pipe that is weighted to weigh the exact weight of your rifle on your shoulder if you don't use a sling on your rifle, or fit a sling to that piece of pipe and carry it over your shoulder like you would be carrying that rifle all day on an extended hunt. And also believe you should be walking, carrying your binoculars, however you're going to carry your binoculars, either in one of those bra-type harness things, or I prefer it over my shoulder and slung underneath my left arm, on my left hip. So you get used to walking with your binoculars, because you'll soon find if your binoculars don't have the right strap on them, or you have them around your neck, that they bounce. And if you're wearing the binocular strap that the binoculars come with, they have those sort of wide foam rubber straps, which are awful because you sweat underneath them. So you'll suddenly realize if you've never walked with your binoculars, try to carry your binoculars for 10 miles, you'll soon figure out a way to carrying them comfortably. And the best way, I believe, is just with a thin leather strap over the shoulder, and they're carried underneath your armpit or on your hip on your non-shooting side. So if you shoot right-handed, then your binoculars are on your left hip, and you shoot left-handed, your binoculars are carried underneath your right armpit, just sort of resting on your pelvic or your hip bone.
And so, of course, while you're doing this, you're wearing the boots you're going to wear during your hunt, right? So you're getting in good shape while making sure those boots aren't going to tear your feet all to pieces on the hunt then, right?
Yeah, and also you wear what the clothes you're going to wear. I used to hunt in short pants, and so I would, obviously depending on the weather conditions, but you try and wear the clothing that you're going to be hunting in. Wear your shirt, because the shirt's got to be able to absorb the sweat, because definitely sometimes it's pretty hot and you sweat a lot. So you need a shirt that's going to have natural fibers that can absorb sweat, not like a nylon shirt or something like that where, they're just hot and uncomfortable to wear. So basically, I think you train in the wearing the clothing that you expect to wear on the hunt.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's all good advice. And there's just like anything else. This is the sort of thing that it sounds like it's very simple and straightforward to do, but there's no real shortcuts in doing it. Walking 10 miles takes a long time, and you just need to dedicate, the couple hours that you need to practice doing that, before the hunt, and then makes it a whole lot easier once you're actually over there forking over the big bucks for that hunt.
Yeah, I took a 76-year-old guy on a hunt to Zimbabwe last year, and he needed a knee replacement, and I just said, as long as you just start training. So he walked with a knee brace, and he walked with a hiking pole, and he said he couldn't carry his rifle, so I ended up volunteering to be his gun bearer, which was a wonderful experience. So he didn't carry his rifle, but by the time, we started, and we had nearly 8 months to prepare for the hunt. And he started straight away. And he'd walk half a mile, and he went up to a mile, and eventually he was walking 10 miles in a day. And he arrived fit, he arrived lean and healthy, and with his walking pole, and he as long as the ground was quite flat, we hunted in the Nyakasanga, which is a pretty flat area. He was fine. He ended up hunting 2 buffalo. So, and he managed those walks without problem, mainly because he put the time and the effort to get himself endurance-wise prepared for the hunt.
Now, that definitely does seem to be one of the things that makes it, I guess, less difficult, at least for the most part. Everywhere I've been in Africa where there have been buffalo, ground hasn't been very, very steep. Like you said, more or less flat. Sometimes you get some rocks on the ground. Sometimes there's some sand on the ground that makes it hard to walk on like that. But it's not like you're climbing mountains or anything like that to
right.
get up for buffalo.
And I'm getting what I'm nearly 65 years old now, and I'd like to walk with a stick. So even now, I would hunt. Even though I had a rifle over my shoulder, I would carry a walking stick, And that's just nice when you're more stable. If you're sort of walking down into riverbanks, into beds and stuff like that, definitely. Or when I used to hunt professionally, I used to sometimes carry the shooting sticks and use the shooting sticks as walking sticks, and definitely makes you more steady, and you just get used to it. Get used to walking with a stick or walking with some sort of walking aid, and and just make sure that you're walking in the boots that you will be hunting in. So those boots must be really well worn in. And, you wear exactly the same socks you're going to wear on your hunt and things like that. And it just becomes an absolute routine. And it's just the endurance of it. So what I also suggested was that you have some energy. You carry some other form of an energy bar or some of these energy, like Gatorade or something like that, which you put into the water bottles. So there's always on the hunt, there's always what we call the mule, the guy that had a rucksack carrying water, and he carried some lunch, and he carried the spare ammo, and he carried the first aid kit. And then when you give you a bottle of water, then all you do is just take one of those little packets of energy aid or something like that and just put it in your drinking water. So you just keep your energy levels up. And that also makes a huge difference.
Well, let's talk a little bit about shooting now. Obviously being in good shape is extremely important, and that's what you need to get a reasonable chance at a shot on a buffalo, but you still need to make the shot when the time comes. So what sort of shooting conditions should a hunter prepare for on a buffalo hunt?
In my experience, most shooting opportunities are missed because people are not mentally prepared for the occasion, and they take too long to get set up on the sticks to take the shot. I've proven it time and time again. In most buffalo hunts, you'll have a 3 to 4 second window of shooting opportunity. And you've got to be able to be so muscle memoried, and you'll be so thoroughly well practiced that you need to be able to get yourself set up on sticks, get your safety catch off, get your scope on the right setting, and take a well-aimed shot. You should be able to hit an 8-inch fire plate at 100 meters and a 6-inch fire plate at 50 meters within 4 seconds. And that takes an amazing amount of muscle memory and skill to be able to do that. And you don't have to shoot the shot off every time. You can learn to get set up on sticks in your own living room, shooting at a target. And it's just there's a method on how you shoot off shooting sticks. A lot of people don't know that method. So we used to use just a bipod shooting stick. So it's just two sticks. It's not a tripod, because my experience was that tripod shooting sticks take an extra second or two longer to get set up. That extra leg has to be positioned more carefully, and that wastes a second or two. So I always just use two-legged shooting sticks. And what the person would do, either the tracker or the PH, mainly the tracker, would put the shooting sticks down and then move to the side. And then it's the shooter's job. If he shoots right-handed, he holds his rifle by the pistol grip in his right hand, and he places the forend of the rifle into the V that's created by the top of the shooting sticks. And then with his left hand, he grabs the neck of the shooting sticks, and then he positions those sticks where he gets a line of sight on the target animal. The guy that puts the sticks down, he can't see what the guy's going to shoot's doing. So you use your left hand to position the sticks, and then you use your left hand to raise the left hand leg of the shooting sticks to get to the correct height of the sticks. So when the guy that places the sticks, he obviously places them a little bit lower than they need to be, because if he places them too high, you have to put your forend of the rifle in probably above your line of sight. So the shooting sticks are normally positioned lower than they need to be, and then the shooter, if you understand what I'm saying, you put the forend of the rifle. You're holding your rifle by the pistol grip in your right hand if you shoot right-handed. You put the forend of the rifle into the V created at the top of the shooting sticks, and then using your left hand at the neck of where the X part of the, you use that, grab the shooting sticks there, and then you move them either left or right until you've got a line of sight, and then you use your left hand then to either make the two legs come together closer so that your heart that raises your shooting level, or you spread it out even further so you wanted to get it a bit lower down. And then it's very important that you grip your forend of your rifle in front of the shooting sticks, and you brace your left forearm on the left leg of the shooting stick to give you extra support. And then I used to teach my clients to angle the shooting sticks backwards slightly, so they're not vertically, they're slightly angled rearwards, and then you lean into the shooting stick, so you lean forward with you're shooting right hand, your weight is on your left leg or your left foot, so you create your body creates the third leg of of a creates a tripod, if you can understand what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. And that's an extremely stable form of shooting. Only what happens then, sometimes the only movement you can really have in that situation is some lateral swinging from side to side. What I would do then, I would stand next to my client, looking at the buffalo through my binoculars, and I'll be so close to him that he could rest his right elbow either against my shoulder or against my forearm to get absolutely even more steady. And you shoot a buffalo is a large target. I mean, you're shooting at the size of a 6-inch pipe plate. I mean, that's what you're going for the high shoulder, the middle of the vital triangle, high heart lung shot. I mean, you've got a pretty large margin of shooting error, but you've got to be able to do all that within 4 seconds, and that's where the challenge comes. And most people need to be muscle memory. You need to practice that enough to you can actually do that in that length of time. And you can practice that at home. You can just get your wife or your kids can just be the gun bearer and put the sticks down, and then you practice that over and over again. And you have a set of dummy cartridges made, and you actually take a shot, because remember that the shot is not complete until the rifle is reloaded. So once you've taken the shot off sticks, what you do then, and we never liked reloading with the rifle still in the shoulder. So as soon as you've taken the shot, you keep your eyes on the buffalo, you lift the rifle out of the V at the top of the shooting sticks, and you push those shooting sticks forward. Then you reload, and it's really important when you're reloading a big bore rifle to actually see that your cartridge case is ejected, and if you glance down, you need to see that second cartridge has been chambered, because the loudest sound in the African bush is the click when you're expecting a bang. And the second loudest sound in the African bush is a bang when you're expecting a click. Oh. Because especially with magnum length Mauser action, magnum length rifles, if you taking a shot and you try and work the bolt, that bolt comes back so close to your nose and your face that you tend to short stroke it because it feels uncomfortable. So we would never allow our clients to reload with the rifle still in their shoulder. They had to get the rifle out of the sticks and then reload it so they can physically see the cartridge case being ejected and actually see and hear and feel the second cartridge being. Because remember, you're at the buffalo, we always say just keep on shooting till as long as you've got a clear shot at the animal. So your second shot's going to be a moving target, and you don't want to be on sticks for a moving target. You're much better to shoot a moving target if you're standing you're going to shoot a shotgun at a flushing quail or something like that. So your first shot at a buffalo is always of some form of rest. We would never allow a client to take a shot freehand at a buffalo for the initial shot. Only if that buffalo was extremely close, but 99% of the time, that first shot is always taken of some form of rest. Because buffalo are basically easy to kill. If you put that bullet in the right place, they die. And people have asked me, how do you stop yourself getting into a difficult situation with a buffalo? Well, you just don't take any risky shots that are going to get you there in the first place. And you never shoot until you're assured of a killing first shot. That's the absolute golden rule of buffalo hunting. If you're not happy with a shot, don't take it. There will be another opportunity. That's when you take a risky shot, when you take a shot that's a 50-50, animal moving. And also, we never took a shot at a moving animal. The animal had to be exactly stationary. Most times, about 80% of the cases, the buffalo is actually looking at you because their senses are so great and are so attuned, living a life in the African bush where lions are their greatest predators. But the buffalo is very difficult to get into within a shooting range of a buffalo without him becoming aware of your presence. And then he'll turn to look at you, and then you've got that frontal chest shot. And that frontal chest shot is very effective, but you've only got to target the size of your hand, but you've got to shoot into the thoracic inlet. If you place that frontal shot on to either side, there's a very good chance that bullet gets deflected by the overlapping ribs and then ends up in the abdomen. So did that sort of answer the question, John?
No, definitely. And that is, so when you have a new hunter come into camp, back when you were guiding guys on hunts, is this something that you would have a discussion with them when they arrived, really before you started hunting? You're talking about how hey, this is how we set up the shooting sticks, and then I recommend you take your head up and verify that you're actually ejecting and chambering a new cartridge and all of that stuff?
Oh yes, we've given them a training course. Oh, the first day on the shooting range is I said before, when the guy takes his rifle out of his gun bag, before he's fired one shot, we know whether he knows how to shoot or not. It's very obvious. And if you can see his inexperience, then you'll say, "Oh, listen, let's get this right." And I used to take my 22 down to the Zambezi Valley, and if the guy was an absolute novice, we were teach him to shoot with the 22 first. This is how we're going to do it. This is how it's going to work, and we practice. I mean, eventually, give him the shooting sticks, and you give him the old tracker, and say, "Okay, now go and practice for half an hour till you get this right, because this is how it's going to be." But later on, then I learned what I've just explained now, that you communicate with your client, and even recommend that he gets a pair of shooting sticks. Those shooting sticks from African Sporting Creations, or Jim Miranda's shooting sticks, are probably the best, some of the best there are. Make him buy one of those shooting sticks and say, "You learn how to shoot, and bring your own sticks with you when you come, because you'll be so used to them. They fall down, and they fit into like a little fishing rod case. So bring your own sticks. So if you're happy with them, then we'll use your own sticks. And then you've got no excuse for not putting that shot in the right place."
Well, speaking of putting your shot in the right place, what sort of physical reactions are common with a buffalo when you shoot one?
Right. Yeah, we've discussed this before. I'm a real heavy for caliber man, and I was seen many times that a guy takes a shot at a buffalo with a 375 and a 300 grain bullet, and there's absolutely no reaction to that shot whatsoever. No reaction. Buffalo just runs off. And there's no flinching, there's no hunching, and sometimes you say, "Well, geez, did I hit it?" So a buffalo is an amazingly tough animal. But then I went up to 350 grain and 380 grain bullets. So basically we're turning the 375 into one of the 40 calibers. And then there's definitely a reaction to it. They say that the bullet, it numbs them. You can actually feel that, you can actually see that hit, because of what you're doing. By increasing the bullet weight, you are increasing the KO, the knockout effect. And that's a very, very marked difference between a 300 grain and a 350 grain. That the knockout effect is substantially increased. I think it goes from like 35 to 41, if I remember the figures correctly. Also, when you go from the 375 to the 40 calibers, there's a huge difference to seeing the initial punch, that hitting punch of the caliber. Then if you go to the 458 and up to the 50 cals, man, when I shoot a buffalo with that 505 of mine, it's like being hit by the fist of Thor. It really makes a difference. So what you really want to see, hopefully you would get a buffalo from side on, because that's the ideal thing, exactly from side on, then you shoot him in the middle of the vital triangle. If that bullet hits the heart, as it's supposed to do, or the top of the heart, but mainly the heart itself, if you shoot a little bit low, the buffaloes tend to run away with a bunny hopping action. They both sort of legs sort of work together, and it's very characteristic. It's a sort of this bouncing, hopping motion, which is very characteristic of a heart shot. Also, you would hopefully want to see, if it's probably a quartering towards shot, you'd see one of the legs is broken. So you'd see the buffalo running away with a leg flapping or a leg dangling, or he's not putting any weight on one leg. But a buffalo can run really quickly on three legs, so don't let that fool you. But and then what you do is you just keep on shooting. If there's an opportunity to get a second shot at a buffalo, then you just keep on shooting till as long as you've got that buffalo in sight. So that's why it's really important when you're reloading your rifle, is you drop your rifle, so you keep your eyes on the buffalo, because if you're trying to reload with the rifle in your shoulder, it's very hard, very much more difficult to keep the buffalo you shot at in your vision while you're trying to reload with, you've got the scope and everything else in blocking your line of vision. So we would always reload with the rifle out of the shoulder, keep your eyes on the animal, but as you can still be looking at the buffalo, but when you eject your cartridge, in your peripheral vision, you can actually see that cartridge case being ejected. And then if you practice with your rifle long enough, you can feel you can actually hear and feel as the bolt goes forward. And that's why I like to use a controlled feed action. You can actually feel and hear the second cartridge coming up and getting in underneath the extractor, and you can actually feel the cartridge going into the chamber. Yeah, but quite often, certainly with the heavier calibers, and that's certainly if you're using a 375 with the with heavier for caliber bullets, there was definitely, you can actually see the reaction. And strangely enough, the 9.3 by 62 is a extremely effective cartridge. And I had a rifle of that, I've just sold it, but that rifle of mine had 650, at least 650 buffalo calves to its credit. But from side on with a 9.3, the bullet would never exit from side on position as it would do with a 375. Because in the old days when we started hunting buffalo, the law was just you always use solids for buffalo. So you should have a buffalo with a 375 and a 300 grain solid. That bullet really comes out the other side. But with a 9.3, it never did it. You always find the bullet up against the skin on the opposite shoulder. And we called it the energy dumping theory. And you could actually, I believe that a 9.3 shocked a buffalo more than a 375 did, even though the paper ballistics were significantly less, because those bullets stayed inside the animal and didn't exit. So all that energy is just basically released into the body, and then you get that reaction. When a bullet is whipped straight through a buffalo and comes out the other side, sometimes you see the dust of the bullet hitting the ground on the opposite side, and that buffalo makes no reaction whatsoever. So, and that's why I like my 9.3, because the recoil was less, but it seemed to be actually more effective. And funny enough, the old guy that I bought that rifle from, he was the crop protection officer for Triangle Sugar Estates, and he said a 9.3 kills a buffalo quicker and better than a 375 when solids are used. And I believe he was actually correct in his assessment of that.
That's interesting. I especially with the 9.3, I have one myself. I killed a buffalo with one. Oh gosh, it was probably 10 years ago, and first shot was broadside, and I hit him, and he staggered and kind of turned and ran, and was kind of confused, didn't know what the heck was going on, and stopped with his tail towards me, and then I shot him again, and I hit him right in the pelvis where the spine connects to it, and he dropped right there, and so it was almost picture perfect. Performance. Couldn't have asked for anything better out of what ended up happening with that buffalo. Now this buffalo made that very characteristic death bellow afterward. As he was laying there on the ground as we went up on him. Can you, for the listener that doesn't know what that is, can you talk about the death bellow?
Well, it's pretty hard to explain. It's the most hair-tingling, mournful sound you'll ever hear in your life. It's a long, drawn-out, mournful bellow as the buffalo breathes its last. It's very characteristic, and I've heard it many times, and every time I hear it, the hairs on my arms and the hair at the back of my neck stands up. It's a beautiful but mournful sound, because when you hear the death bellow, the game's just about over. If buffalo die very quickly, I'm talking about instances where their heart has just been blown apart, or the aorta is ruptured, and you get this massive loss in blood pressure. The animal just drops to the shot, or just staggers and falls down, and they die very quickly. That you often don't get a death bellow. It's when that buffalo has been shot to the top of the lungs, or that, and he's just breathing. As his life is sort of ebbing away from him, he gives out this absolutely mournful sort of cheerio sound, or I'm leaving this earth sound, and it's very emotional. And I've had big hairy chested men with stubble on their chin hear that sound and get tears in their eyes. It's an extremely moving sound, and I hope your listeners get to hear it one day, because once you've heard it, you'll actually never forget it.
I know I never will. I'd read about it, and I'd heard other people's experiences, and man, when I heard that sound, I knew, oh gosh, this can't be anything else. This is what it has to be, and this is what all these people have been talking about.
Oh yes, it's absolutely distinctive. It's and funny enough, I've never been able to record that sound. It would be. I think those hunts are such emotional, energy-driven, and your emotions are so high at those stages. I've not even a camera. I've never heard that sound even on a DVD or a buffalo hunting video at all. Maybe you should ask one of the cameras to just try to capture it, because it's a sound that's probably one of the most unique sounds in the world. That's what I would think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, so we talked about getting in shape. We talked about practicing your marksmanship in a realistic way, so the person, the hunter's able to get themselves a good shot and then make the shot when it is presented on the buffalo. What other sort of gear that should a hunter bring with them to help get set up for success on a buffalo hunt?
Okay, your most important thing is obviously your rifle, and with the way things are happening with airline travel these days, a lot of people are opting to travel without rifle and just to use the camp rifle. And I know certainly my PH friends and Safari other friends, they will have a good selection of pretty decent rifles in camp that are well tested, well used. They have ammo, so that's certainly an option if someone wants to go that route. Your next most important thing is your binoculars, and binoculars are an absolutely essential part of a buffalo hunt, because buffalo, although they're big black bovines, man, you cannot believe how well they just blend into the shadows. They can just disappear. And you often use your binoculars to look into the shadows, and you look into the really thick areas where you'll just see the flicker of an ear or the shine on a nose or the glint on a buffalo's boss. But also your binoculars are used to enjoy all the other things that a buffalo hunt should provide: the beautiful birds, the plains game, the elephants, the lions, the leopards, everything else that you're going to see on a hunt. You should be able to look at that through a really good pair of binoculars. And I'm a great believer in Swarovskis, and I believe that with binoculars, it's just the more you pay, the better you pay for quality. And I've been a Swarovski man for 30 years, and I've had 2 pairs of binoculars in 30 years. They just lasted. They just never let me down. And even now here in Texas, I still use my Swarovski binoculars every day of my life. So I'm great like them, but Zeiss, Lights, all the really good German binoculars, I believe, are well worth the investment. My binoculars, after I've had my binoculars for 20 years, they got a bit scratched, when you're hunting and you get dust on the lens, you just take your handkerchief and clean off the dust, and eventually the lenses get a bit scratched. I sent mine back to the manufacturers, and I'm sure they just gave me a new pair of binoculars. They came back either totally refurnished. They looked like they were brand new. So, and then a really good pair of binoculars will last your lifetime and probably your kids' lifetime if you look after them properly. So that's really important. And then just a big problem that many people make on safari is that they bring too much kit with them. Quite often you're going to fly into camp in a light aircraft. And you must remember that in every safari camp in Africa, the laundry is done every day. So what you wear today, it'll be washed the following day, and you can wear it again the day after. So in theory, you only need 3 sets of hunting clothes. You can travel in one. You need a tracksuit for the evening wear. It can be quite chilly. You need a light jacket if you're hunting in the wintertime, and the mornings can be quite cold. 1 set of pajamas is all you need, because they'll get washed every day, and they'll be ready for that evening. And what the worst thing is, people arrive with these massive big suitcases full of clothing that they never wear. You have to try and stuff these huge suitcases into a small 4-seater airplane, which sometimes creates quite a challenge. And there have been incidences where people brought so much luggage that they couldn't fit it in the airplane, and somebody had to go and get someone with a land cruiser or a 4x4 vehicle to drive these suitcases all the way to camp, which is just absolutely ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
What magnification binoculars do you recommend? 8 power?
I use a 10 by 32. 8 or 10 by 32s are absolutely fine. I find that when you start going to 40, they're getting a bit big and a bit heavy. I use those Swarovski EL 10 by 32s, and man, I believe that they are the best binoculars for buffalo hunting that there are out there. So, something similar, a similar make. Mm-hmm. Most people make the mistake of bringing 12 by 50 or something, these really heavy, big binoculars. Because remember, you're going to have that thing around your neck for 12 hours a day, or at least 10 hours a day. So they've got to be relatively light, handy. And sometimes, if they're the right set, you can actually hold those binoculars with one hand. The big challenge with a lot of people that like to hunt without a sling on their rifles is, how do you hold your rifle and look through your binoculars with both hands at the same time. And that's difficult to do. So I've always liked a sling because I believe that it's easier to carry a rifle with a sling, and also it's less tiring, and it's also safer because, when the rifle's slung over your shoulder, the barrel's pointing out of the way everywhere. If you're carrying a rifle over your shoulder, that barrel invariably points at someone's back at some stage. And I have a friend of mine who lost his arm to being shot off by his client, and two of my friends that were killed by buffalo were actually shot by the clients as well. So, and none of those clients with their rifles had slings on them. So I always say to my client, put a sling on your rifle. It's so much easier to carry it because it's just safer. It's out of the way, and your barrel's pointing to the sky where it's safe. So I consider a sling an absolutely essential part of a buffalo hunt for a buffalo hunt.
So, assuming a person brings the right gear, they show up in shape, and then they can hit what they're aiming at, they're proficient with their rifle. What other sort of stuff can they do when they're actually on the hunt that will improve their odds of success?
Just become part of the hunt. Just enjoy the experience. And just go with the flow. There's nothing worse than the client that arrives in camp with a tape measure hanging around his neck. He'll only shoot a buffalo if it's this big. He'll only shoot an impala if it's that big. He'll only shoot a kudu if it's that big. And that is actually the worst client you could ever have on a hunt. We talk about Diana being the goddess of hunting. Just you enjoy the experience and see what Diana throws in your lap. Don't put pressure on the PH. And the PH is going to do the best he can because he wants that tip at the end of the day, but he also wants to give his client the best experience he can, because a satisfied client is the best form of advertising for any professional hunter or outfitter. So, and the guys that just go there with that real, let's just see what happens and let's just enjoy ourselves and let's just go and look for a nice old dugger boy. Those are the guys that the gods seem to smile on them, and they come away with the most fantastic trophies because they've just got the right mental attitude about the whole experience. It's not about the inches, it's about the experience. And the client that arrives in camp with besotted about the inches and besotted about record book standings and all that, they are so focused and driven by that aspect of the hunt that they seem to forget all the other little enjoyable parts about it. You don't go and hunt a buffalo just to get your name in the record book. I believe if that is your attitude, then I think you're in the wrong movie. You go there for the experience of experiencing Africa, hunting this most wonderful animal, and you get what you take. There's a lot of luck involved in hunting as well. And the guy that's prepared to bend the rules and to take a shot from a vehicle just because it's a record book animal, he's not getting, I believe, the full value of what Africa's all about. It's just about taking it as it comes. Just go with that nice, relaxed atmosphere. I'm come to hunt to have fun. That's the guy that says, I'm just come to have a good time and have fun, and let's go look for the best buffalo we can find. That's the type of attitude which I believe produces the best results, because there's no pressure on the PH. Hunt should be laughter and good banter and around the fire at night and things like that. Not this, you told me we would see buffalo by 10 o'clock and it's now 10:05 and we haven't found the buffalo yet. Some of the continental hunters, the more tutoric origin, can be difficult in that regard. And I believe that their hearts and their minds are not in the right place. They want a certain type of animal. It's got to measure this. It's got to be a gold medal. It's got to be a this or that. And they just have the wrong attitude right from the start. And that puts a lot of pressure on the PH. And invariably, that hunt doesn't turn out as successful as the guy that just goes with that happy-go-lucky attitude. I'm just here to have fun. I want to shoot a nice buffalo. Let's go and see what we can find. With that attitude, success is invariably assured. It's all about your mental attitude, and just be nice around camp. Sometimes we have punches, and sometimes there breakdowns. The guys that throw their toys out the cot because the vehicle has a puncher, it's going to happen. Just get accept it and just go with the flow, and that's when you have a really good hunt. When you arrive in camp with the right mental attitude and the right approach to how the hunt's going to be, that's when you'll have a fantastic experience.
I think that is a great place to wrap it up today, and I think that's excellent advice because, guys that have the right attitude and they're there just to have fun and they're easygoing and rolling with the punches, it's just more fun for everyone. And when everyone's having fun, then, like you said, good things happen.
Oh, for sure. And that's very true. And you'll be surprised how generous Diana can be when that's the sort of attitude in a hunting camp. It really is. She reads the situation and she rewards those that arrive in a hunting camp with the right attitude. That's very true.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Kevin, that was an excellent discussion as always. I really enjoyed it and I learned a lot, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come on the show again today.
It's only my pleasure, Don. I hope you and your listeners enjoyed it.
Like Kevin said, you owe it to yourself, the people you'll be hunting with, and the buffalo to take your hunt preparation seriously. For one thing, those hunts are expensive, and you'll be glad that you did everything possible ahead of your hunt to set yourself up for success. And for another, unprepared hunters can just be flat out dangerous to themselves and to the PH and trackers out in the bush. Luckily, these hunts are not extremely difficult to prepare for. After all, you're not going to be climbing mountains or carrying a super heavy pack around with you on your hunt. You just need to be capable of walking up to 5 to 10 miles a day at a steady pace. And if you take your preparations seriously, almost anybody is capable of doing that. Now, unfortunately, far too many people don't. And at the same time, there are no shortcuts. You just need to dedicate the time to getting in shape and practicing all the other little things that Kevin and I talked about in this episode before your hunt. Fortunately, you are listening to this podcast, which means you are way ahead of a lot of people when it comes to taking your hunt preparations seriously. The bit about the sling is especially important. It is a little thing, but it can make a big difference from both a safety and a comfort perspective. Don't be that guy who makes your PH or your tracker carry your rifle because you didn't have a sling and you got tired of carrying it. They have enough on their minds already, so carrying your rifle is your responsibility, and a good sling will make that a whole lot easier. Now, additionally, remember what he said about binoculars. He carries high-quality 10 by 32 millimeter binoculars. Those binoculars won't gather as much light as an equivalent pair of 10 to 42 millimeter or larger binoculars, and they don't have as much magnification as 12 power or 15 power binoculars, but those 10 to 32 millimeter binoculars are much lighter and easier to carry, and they still provide the optical performance necessary to spot and judge buffalo under typical buffalo hunting conditions. And remember, this is a buffalo hunt, not a coos deer hunt where you might need to glass up a coos deer a mile away, so you don't need the binoculars that you need for that hunt while you're hunting buffalo. So keep that in mind and make sure that you're prioritizing the right things in your gear. And finally, above all, make sure that you enjoy yourself and bring a good attitude on your hunt. Nobody likes a jerk or a bragger. However, your PH and all the camp staff will bend over backwards to help out a nice guy who is a pleasure to be around. Like Kevin said, it's also amazing how good things just start to happen when everyone is having fun and just having a good attitude. Diana, the goddess of hunting, can be generous to those who have the right attitude and who are hunting for the right reasons. Buffalo hunting is a lot of fun, and you get to see some amazing things on those hunts. So bring a good attitude and enjoy the ride, because that's what it's all about. Now, this is the 4th episode I've done with Kevin. In episode 97, we talked about Africa hunting bullets. In episode 103, we talked about Africa hunting rifles. We did episode 124 on Cape buffalo in general, and today's show is on preparing for a hunt in Africa. If you've listened to all of those episodes and really paid attention to what Kevin had to say, then you have a pretty good base of information about hunting in Africa, and you probably know way more about the subject than most other hunters. If you're ready to take the plunge and go on the hunt of a lifetime in Africa, then get in touch with me and I will set you up with an outstanding hunt out in the bushveld. Those hunts are for serious hunters who want to experience wild Africa. They're not for everybody, though, and I actually have to turn away people who are interested in hunting with us each year because I don't think they can hack it, or I think they're looking for a different kind of hunt than what we provide. But if you are a serious hunter looking for a true African hunting adventure, then send me an email at john@thebiggamehuntingblog.com or visit biggamehuntingadventures.com, and we will get you set up with that hunt that you've always dreamed of. Mention that you heard about Big Game Hunting Adventures through the Big Game Hunting Podcast, and I will give you special pricing on all our hunts. Now, the fact that you are listening to this podcast means that you are serious about making your hunting dreams come true. Remember, you can make your dream hunt turn into a reality, and we can help. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you back here next time on the Big Game Hunting Podcast.
This show may be over, but we have plenty more for you on our website. For more information on today's topic, as well as lots of other useful hunting resources, head over to the BigGameHuntingBlog.com. We look forward to having you back for the next episode. But until then, happy hunting.